Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. I'm your host, Stacey J. Dempsey, and like always, thankfully, I have the one and only dad and one of the other daughters, Dad and Jennifer. Good morning, good afternoon to you guys, and to all of our listeners and viewers.
Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, or
So
evening.
here we are. We're rolling into the end of the year. We're rolling into December. And what better time than now than to talk about the things that we need to be paying attention to as we come to a close for 2024. We're looking into 2025. And just what does that to-do list kind of look like outside of just our regular to-do list? So before we kind of just start that discussion, we also want to keep in mind this is a very busy time of year. We really don't have all 30-ish days, right? We don't really have as much time as we would say, in a summer month as far as hours and days to get things done for those that celebrate holidays. So, how do we balance all of that? And what are some things we can be doing throughout the year to maybe make it a little bit easier on us to make sure that we are planning and analyzing and preparing our business going into a new year? So, here we are in December, Dad and Jennifer. And so what are we doing right now to kind of start to work on and finish up wrapping up 2024 when it comes to our business? What are we making a priority outside of just actually doing the work we have to do, right? Like Dad and I were meeting with clients and Jennifer is in there making people beautiful, but that's the service of it. What There's a lot of other things that go into it. So what are we doing right now to kind of wrap, knowing that we're going to be wrapping up 2024?
Well, this is convenient because yesterday I walked into my accountant's office to drop off some, paperwork that I normally do every month, every quarter. And the question started, right? And I was like, hold on, Mary. This is not the time. Okay. I'm trying to be in and out. Don't start asking me a bunch of questions. I'm not ready. But we are coming up on the time of the year where you spend the most time with your accountant. I like to not talk to my accountant for most of the year. No, I'm joking. But emails, right? And then all of a sudden the end of the year comes and now we're meeting with each other a lot. So I think when I'm thinking about this topic, I want to tell our listeners this was when I first started my business, this was very stressful for me. So I just want to point out that each end of the year season that you go through, you learn more. And you, just like our everyday business, you kind of get into a system. And then you figure out what system works for you, what system doesn't work for you, and you try to make it better. And I can remember, our sister Emily went into business for herself. And, she kind of went through that first end of year season for herself. And she's like, how do you know this? Why is this? And why is that? And I'm like, I only know it because I made a mistake. I messed up somewhere. And now I understand it a little bit better. So my first piece of advice when it comes to the end of the year is to really work with an accountant that you can build a nice relationship with. I know changing accountants when it comes to business is very hard, very scary. But I do think it's important for you to try and find an accountant that really works for you, and make that relationship. Obviously, the longer that you work with an accountant, they understand you, they understand your business. For me, for a lot of when I was kind of trying to find the right fit, accountants were like, "That's cute. You have a little hair salon," and I was like, "No, no, no. I need someone that is going to take this business very serious, understand how it works." Understand that payroll is a different kind of expense. And so just understand the business and the position that we're in. So that would be my first advice is really try and work with your accountant and then find out what kind of system works for you. I think that each year you kind of do your end of the year, you prepare for a new year. Listen, I get stressed out ending one month and moving into the next month. Let's be honest, right? Because you're trying to wrap up with one month and move into the next month. But you do get better at it as you just have more practice and you understand what you're doing and what your accountant needs. And I think throughout the year, you know, like for me, I'm on a system where every month I kind of send certain things over to my accountant. At the end of the quarter, I'm sending certain things. If there's questions or concerns, they're emailing me. We're addressing that kind of each month. So by the end of the year, I have a good understanding. My accountant has a good understanding of where we're at. And so there might be a few back and forth, like, why did you spend $5,000? What is this? Right. But it's not an overwhelming thing anymore. And I'll use this example. My business is an LLC, and we've kind of started talking with my accountant, like, hey, I think we should change it. So, again, having an accountant that can give you suggestions, that can point you in the right direction, and to obviously, we're all here to make money and not owe money when it comes to taxes and things like that. So, you want to work with someone that you can trust, that takes the time to understand your business and have a really good system. So that way it's less stressful for you that's wearing multiple hats, especially by the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely want to start scheduling those, professionals that you have for your business, right? You want to start, and I know Dad will say, you don't want to wait until the end of the year to start talking to your tax to your accountant. Same thing with your insurance. Same thing with your lawyer. There are things that maybe this kind of end of year brings up that we didn't need to talk to our lawyer last year, but maybe there's contracts that are coming up. Dad, I know you work with, clients that they kind of have their list of professionals that they need to see. You are one of them. You certainly refer them to others. So kind of what's your take on this end of year, what to make a priority and what not for our listeners?
Yeah, well, I'm just lining right up with what Jen was saying because one of the things that, you know, if you're a good business person, what you're not doing is, you know, meeting with your accountant right now, not knowing what kind of year you have or you're having, I should say. That should be something that you have been tracking along the way. So, from that perspective, there shouldn't be any need for a long, onerous meeting, and honestly, I mean, you have a lot of business people that they don't talk to their accountant all year long. They don't even talk to them at the end of the year. They're not talking to them until they go to do their tax return, and they're walking in there with, you know, their shoebox full of receipts and all these things, and then they're sitting down doing tax return. I mean, that's not good business. You want to, you need to be tracking, your revenue. You need to be tracking your expenses. You need to be tracking your profit. You need to be tracking all these things, throughout the year, minimally quarterly, but, preferably monthly, that you're getting that information. As Jennifer said, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have face-to-face meetings with your accountant, but you should be getting them the information and they should be keeping that in a spreadsheet. So then once you start heading towards the end of the year, you're knowing that, okay, I've got to make some moves for tax reasons because of, having, a great year, or not having such a great year. But, one way or another, you're not walking into December surprised, and then you're not walking into, the spring of 2025 meeting with your CPA doing your 2024 taxes, only to find out you had a great year and you probably should have taken some more write-offs or something like that. So just be good business people and get in the habit, of communicating those kind of things on an ongoing basis. And it just save you not only probably a lot in taxes, but it's going to save you even more time, because you're going to have kept up with it along the way. So that's huge.
Yeah, and also making sure, and we've talked about it before, making sure that you're carving out that time to give, maybe you don't need to sit down with your insurance professional, every month, certainly, or even every quarter, but, scheduling that time so that it is undivided attention. Because if you have a good insurance, professional, they're going to be giving you suggestions. They're going to giving you recommendations. They're going to be needing, that of, needing your time to really make sure that they understand your business properly. Also, I was meeting with a client yesterday, said, they schedule time with their banker. They like working with one local bank. They've worked with someone for many years. And what they do is they wait until after the first of the year, but they will connect with their banker and they will ask, hey, there's certain documents that, because a lot of things are electronic now. They want to see that before they have their appointment, but they schedule their appointment. They, go and they pick up some documents so that they can be well versed on, how certain accounts are doing, and if there's things that they need to maybe max fund, and just they start to get all of that information now, even if they aren't carving that time out until after January to give that undivided attention. So making sure that you just schedule that time, because there's something, I mean, everybody's built differently. If I didn't know what was going on until I walked into my accountant's office, I'd probably have a stomach ulcer from just worry, but everybody's different. So some people can operate that way. I don't think a Dempsey can, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But there are those things to just, Dad's like, I absolutely cannot. I will have an ulcer. It won't be, can't sleep.
Well, it's just
Yeah.
not good business. I mean, at the
It's
end of
just,
the
well, it's
day,
just
it's
not
just,
good business, but also let's
right.
talk, mental health too is like knowing and being confident and understanding, it all plays a factor. It all plays a factor. So the other thing too is, going into 2025, the December can be a very interesting time where you're wrapping up one year, but then you're also trying to prepare for the new year that comes in a blink of an eye. And so, Dad, why don't you talk a little bit about what are maybe some things that people can do to make it easier for themselves outside? I know we talked about the account, but what are maybe some other things that people could do to make this time a little bit easier on them? Because there is so much to do and so little time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And so, I mean, I can speak to one of the things that we decided to do um, probably several years ago because, what we felt the pressure of December. I mean, we were busy, there were year end numbers that we wanted to meet. We were seeing clients. And then on top of that, you had to start preparing for 2025 in terms of your budget. You had to start analyzing salary increases, cost of living increases. You had to do employee evaluations. I mean, it just was really a pressure packed month on top of holidays. Then you have days off, and it just made December very, very challenging. So one of the things that we did is we still have our fiscal year as calendar. So we're still, from a tax perspective, we're still working with that fiscal year. But from a planning perspective, we switched our planning to a July 1st to June 30 planning year. So that moved all of like the business planning, the goal setting, the budgeting, the employee reviews, payroll increases to the middle of the year when the pace was different. And so that's worked wonderful. It's just taken that pressure off December when you know, when you want to do some numbers, you want to take some time off, those kind of things. And so it's worked well. It takes a year to transition to that. But once you do it, then you find your rhythm with it. And it's just proven to be a much more effective way to do planning rather than try to cram it all into that calendar year, year-end calendar year. Um, so that's that. If you think that makes sense for you, as a business owner or entrepreneur, then I would highly suggest you consider that because it's really worked well for us.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion. And even in some of my nonprofit life, we've implemented some of those things because, you know, again, end of year is so crazy, but when you kind of have maybe those slower months of things, you can better look at, like you said, cost of living, bonuses, and things like that. And also, you kind of know how you did last year. So you're not going on what I say, a hope and a prayer of, I hope I did, but now you really know what the snapshot looked like combined with, a full understanding of performance and if goals were met, and you kind of have all the data in front of you, rather than doing it the other way around. So, Jen, what are some things that you're preparing for, or doing now that is maybe going into 2025?
Yeah, I mean, we take a different kind of approach too. I mean, because again, in years past, December is a very busy month and it's a short month. So, I really want to be able to focus. I want my staff to be able to focus on just really being able to cruise through the end of the year, focusing on our clients, making sure everybody is taken care of, knowing that January is typically the slowest month of the whole year. And so right now, again, what I'm doing with the business and working with my distributors and my accountants and probably calling dad way too much, that's the business part. But, really just preparing now for come January, I already planned with my team. We do a vision board class, just some time to get together into the salon together to talk about and reflect on the past year and really get creative of what we want to do in the new year. So, of course, I'm starting to think about what is coming in January, but January is really that month that I really take a step away from being behind the chair and focus on the business and work on some marketing. What do I want the year to look like? Goal setting. And things like that, and getting prepared for that, and also helping my team. And just yesterday, we had our kind of end of the year meeting. Now, I meet with my staff once a month, so they're all we're talking a little bit about numbers and getting prepared, kind of just enjoy this last month of the year. Again, we're talking about passionate hairdressers. So we want to really just feed them what they need in this last month. And then come January, get into kind of like, all right, what did we do well? What did we not do well? I've shared on this podcast before that this past year, I've probably changed everything inside of my business. And so I'm just now until January, I'm just reflecting on what worked, what didn't work, how can we improve. I, as a business owner, believe a lot in small touches and looking for how can we do business differently and better in the next year. So all of that takes time. So for all my entrepreneurs that wear multiple hats, this is something I've always struggled with, is it's so important to take time away from the business, away from like your actual job that you work inside of your business, and have time to really think clearly about what you've been able to accomplish and really be able to goal set correctly come January and take time to be able to do that. So that's what we're amping up to do in these next 2 months.
Yeah, and I just want to add in that, as important it is to schedule time with your business professionals, that also includes your mentors. Scheduling some time come the new year, to have some time to talk about whatever it is you need to talk about with your mentor and get that feedback and get, whether it's help with planning, whether it's, with a challenge, get with your mentor, get with the people that, really encourage you. And sometimes the best people are the people that don't know really that much about your business, the ins and outs of the business. They kind of have like the 30,000-foot view that can give you some level of encouragement or some feedback because they're not in the mud with it. Sometimes they give they sometimes have the best ideas and some of the best feedback, but making sure you schedule your time with them as well, because that is definitely, it's part of the equation. It is part of the equation for sure.
Yeah, and you guys have probably already heard me, but even this past week, I'm like, that's a January problem. Like, we are not going to let things that don't really matter right now take up our time, right? It is such a busy time. We have a lot on our plate. So I have been saying, anytime someone comes at me, I'm like, that's a January problem. Let's revisit this in January. I have no space on my plate for this at this moment. And it's okay to say that, right? It's okay to do those things because, again, being, you know, well planned helps you end a year successfully and start a new year successfully. So I'll talk to you
Well, I
guys in
like that,
January.
Jen. That's really, yeah, that's really good. And I think that's working with that level of confidence, and being able to say that, is understanding that's a manifestation of you running your business, and not your business running you. And I think, that's awesome because, someone whose business is running them, they're going to dive into that,
Mm.
whatever that issue is, they're going to let it rob them of what's important. It's we let the urgent rob us of the important. And so being able to say, nope, we're not going there, we'll deal with that in January. I think that's the sign of a mature business person and a mature business. So I really like that. I hope everybody heard that loud and clear because that's important.
Let you steal my line, Dad. You can use it.
Okay. You know
So
me.
is it appropriate then to say that's a February problem, that's a March problem, that's an April problem?
Now, we're not promoting procrastination here, okay? Boundary.
Dag, Jen, it's like you know me. I don't know. Okay, fine. I won't duplicate that. But so before we wrap this episode up, any final thoughts on anything you guys want to share with our viewers and our listeners about coming to another year of being in business?
Yeah, I mean, a couple practical things that we could, just speak on briefly, this time of year and it's why it's important for you to understand where you're at. So say if you're in a business that, it relies on inventory, supplies, things of that nature, having an understanding of, okay, well, we had a very good year. So we are setting on some surplus. Is it wise to go ahead and buy ahead in that inventory or supplies? Because now the thing that you have to be careful and what you would want to make sure of is, especially if you did it the year before, right? Because if you did it the year before, for 2024, you don't have any write-off in 2024 for that stuff because you took it in 2023. So you want to try and keep that rhythm. But the point being is if you need to buy that stuff anyway, so the benefit would be you get the write-off in 2024. And then the other benefit is, I mean, if we're still experiencing inflation, which we probably will, there could be other factors in, some, government policy decisions around things that could drive prices up in 2025. So maybe you're going to get a better deal, on that inventory, which will help your profit margins in 2025. So that would be one thing to be thinking about. And then, or even if it's stuff being done that you can need done to, if you have a property or a building or a physical location that you have, if there are things that can be done there that's going to need to be done soon that maybe can get done. Now, obviously, any big projects, you're probably too late to the game to try and get that done in 2024. But, if there's upgrades, if there's different things to your physical plant that you can get done and get it done in December, that would be a good thing to do. And then you have your personal planning. If you're funding a retirement plan, for example, for yourself, for your spouse, have you max funded that? Some retirement plans allow you to fund, like 2024 all the way up to tax time of 2025 for 2024. But there's other plans out there that require you, any write-off you want to take in that calendar year has to be fully funded in that calendar year. So just understanding, is there something there, so if because you're going to put the money away anyway, so put the money away and make sure you're maxing out, your limits potentially, so you can get the write-off and, and put the money at work into the whatever investment you might be in sooner. So those are definitely a couple of, areas that are just more practical. So as you said, Stacy, meeting with your banker, meeting with your accountant, meeting with your insurance person, And you most definitely want to meet with your investment advisor, if you have one, to, again, just talk about these things and how they work so that you can make sure you're maximizing those contributions too. So just again, couple quick hits of practical ways to, or practical items to be considering as you approach year end.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, we are going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. And we want to wish you guys a very healthy and happy December. And we hope that you guys have found this information to be helpful. And we appreciate you guys. And we will see you in our next episode.
2025.